Alrighty, on to the next thing, which is installing a new Boondocker cooler right there. So we've gone ahead and taken the side panel off and flipped her on our side. And we are gonna double check the instructions, but basically both of these panels, this side and that side, have to come off. We drill these rivets out and this whole plate comes out, and that's where we end up mounting our new one with coolant lines coming up through the jug here. So I'll get set up, give this a shot. Well, there you have it. That's off. Done with. And you get a good look in here. Now, the one thing I will say is that a lot of these rivet heads were an absolute pain because you can't necessarily reach the back end of them to hold them, and then they just start spinning and melting the plastics where they're going through there. So I did have to use a set of pliers. I think vice grips would have worked a little better, but anyway, this is what I grabbed just to hold the ends from spinning. It's a bit of a screw around, but yeah, that's off. Still a tad bit hot, but that's off of there. Next step, I did take the pipe out, or the can out as well rather, just to give me more room to try and reach the back of some of these rivets. So now I gotta just make sure I chase down every little one of these little rivet ends so that nothing is bouncing around in here wrecking havoc. Most of them dropped out the bottom and I vacuumed some of them up already. But yeah, so I'm gonna clean up everything out of here. I gotta clean all this glue off of here and then start fitting the new belly pan in with the hole for the radiator. So here goes. Well, that was a job and a half. But she's all pretty and clean now. All the old adhesive is off of there. So now it's time to vacuum this out, get it as clean as possible. I'll probably sweep it again once more with my magnet stick just to make sure there's no filings in there. And might even spray it down with some degreaser just to make it look nice and pretty. And then we'll carry on fitting up the new little radiator and panel. Progress. What do you see? Gonna help us here? What? Good girl. Well, we're making progress here. Now, I found something that I'm not crazy about. And what it is when I place this in here in its correct position, lining up these 3 holes I just drilled, I can feel on the back side here that this coolant return line, this bypass line, is touching the back of the fins of the radiator here. So right there is just barely touching the back of here a little bit. Now, I tried loosening up that bolt right there, which is attached to this collar around this hose and keeps it here, so I could push more hose through there and take up some of the slack. But it's too tight on the top end where it goes into the back of the head. So I wasn't able to get any slack pushed up through there to snug this up to the bottom of the engine here. So that being said, it does have this protective collar on there. So what I think I'm going to do is go ahead and install this. And there's not much tension there against it on the back. It's hard to see, but it is definitely touching. But yeah, you can kind of see, which I'm not crazy about, like I said. Yeah, you can tell it's touching. Not a lot of pressure, but see what I mean? I'm not crazy about that. I don't know that it would be enough pressure to wear through anything. It just really suck if it did. So I'm probably gonna add an extra layer of protection on that hose so that even if it does chafe, it's got a ways to go. And then it'll just have to be something I'll have to keep an eye on when we start riding. Because this is definitely, I mean, it's not sharp that you cut yourself, but it definitely could see that wearing on the hose. So I'm gonna add an extra layer of protection on that hose. Find something in the shop here to do that. And then I'll carry on with the install. Putting this in and going from there. So one little hiccup there I'm not super excited about, but we will carry on. Well, we got both coolant lines in, attached on the bottom anyway, and man are they tight. Like, the clearance there is not a lot, which you gotta fight with it to get in there, but it doesn't seem to be touching at the moment. The only issue I found is that this hose is not gonna be long enough. So that's the straightest possible route, and it's supposed to fit. You're supposed to take this one off and it's supposed to tie into the jug right there. So yeah, she's too short. And like I said, that is the straightest possible route onto the mount and straight up here, and it's not gonna reach. So I'm gonna have to cut a chunk of this off and get a connector, splice them together, which I'm not tickled about. And then the second hose, the longer one, ends up going down in here. Hard to show you. Anyway, and connecting down on the throttle body there. So this hose goes straight from the jug to the throttle body. The long hose from what is currently the bottom of our cooler goes to the throttle body, and then the shorter one comes up and is supposed to tie in there. This other one is gonna be nip and tuck as far as long enough too. So all in all, she's a little tight, a little tighter than I'd like. I wouldn't mind a little bit more space in there for stuff to move around. But once I get everything tightened up, I'll get this belly pan that goes around the radiator in. Once we get this all scabbed together, I'll just take a good close look and see where we're at as far as clearances down in here, because I don't want something rubbing. So anyway, yeah, I'll carry on. Well, the bottom end work is done. She's in. I'll say this, she seems sturdy. Sturdy as all get out. That is not going anywhere. The other thing I do like is that you don't rivet any of these back on, not even the plastics here. They give you self-threading bolts for all of them, for the Torx head. So in the event you need to get in here for some reason, you can do it without having to drill out a whole crap ton of rivets. So that's definitely a bonus. She looks pretty slick. Next set, now that looks pretty, is gonna be, like I mentioned before, getting all these hoses running where they gotta go. And just taking the old flashlight and double checking our clearances down in here, because I do not want something rubbing and chafing and creating a leak. So I'm still not tickled about that coolant line touching down there at the bottom, but I did double wrap it with some more protectant like this, so everywhere it's touching it has double depth of this, so that should set us up for a while. So yeah, that's it for this step. So far so good though, all things considered. Definitely a few complications compared to the quick and easy version that it looked like by the instructions, but I'm happy with it. It's looking good. Now, remember I told you that the other end of this hose, which came off of the coolant jug here, where this attaches down in there to the throttle body, it's hard to show you on video, but right. Anyway, this other hose, not the one that comes to the jug, but the second one, is supposed to reach in there. Now, I'm quite sure I can make this reach, but this stock hose has a nice factory bend in it that settles around the oil pump there really nicely. So what I think I'm gonna do is cut and splice these two as well, because I can take this hose, tip it down, cut it somewhere in here and splice those two together as well. And that will have this nice bend around the oil filter instead of me twisting and bending this one to try and make it fit properly. So that's what I'm gonna do. Unfortunately, I only got one connector because I thought I only needed one. So probably right off the bat here, I'm gonna hook up this, cut this bent one and cut this and splice it. And then we should have a nice clean hose going around the oil pump and away from the pipe muffler once I get it back in here. And then with the extra piece I have off of here, I'll probably end up just splicing that on here to come up with the extra I need here. But we'll get her together and make her look as professional as possible. But it's gonna be mediocre at best. Anyway, here goes. Well, I'm definitely happy with the routing of that lower hose rather than trying to bend the one that came and make it go around here in a nice fashion. I just cut the existing one off from where it was attached there, and then we've got that nice bend that comes around the bottom of the oil pump there. No issues there. We got clearance under here, right under there. That's not gonna rub. So yeah, I'm really happy with that one. And then I've rerouted the shorter one to the coolant bottle here. Like I said, it wouldn't reach, so I've added a little tab on here. Once I get another connector, it's just as simple as hooking that together. And that also has a really decent route in here past the oil line and straight down to that fitting. So yeah, all in all, once this is in here, it should be pretty dandy. Be ready to add coolant back in this. Well, that finishes the install of the Boondocker belly pan cooler. You can see her down here, looking pretty. My nose comes up through the back there. I displaced that little section in there to make it long enough. It just wasn't long enough. The piece that they sent that was supposed to reach didn't, so a little disappointing there, but turned out all right. And then down here is the splice we made using the stock bent hose to go around the oil pump here. And then this is the piece, of course, that they sent us. I did trim that one. That one probably could have fit down in background here where that hose goes, but I'd have had to bend it and kink it to make it fit like I told you earlier, so I just went with the stock one there. It's not rubbing on anything. It's well out of the way. So all in all, I like how it's ended out. Looks pretty under here. So hopefully she keeps this puppy cool now that we chopped the tunnel off. Little jerry rigging to make her work, but not too shabby altogether.